Welcome to the Parsha Perspective. Each week, we will delve deep in a weekly Torah portion to find a practical and insightful way to enhance your daily life. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Rabbi Shalom Yamini, and each week we will look into the weekly Torah portion to find practical and insightful ways to enhance your daily life. This week's Parsha Perspective is in honor of our homeland, Eretz Yisroel. May Kadosh Baruch Hu, may God protect our brave soldiers, and may God return all the hostages from Gaza immediately. This week's Parsha Perspective is in loving memory of Edward Ben Efraim, Shlomo Ben Edward, and Yirachmiel Daniel Ben Gedalia. May their souls be uplifted and may their memories be a blessing. This week's Torah portion begins the second book of the Torah, Sefer Shemos, Exile to Redemption. Our Parsha begins by marking a significant turning point. We conclude a story of a family and begin the birth of a nation. The Torah sets the stage by describing the Jewish people's transition from prosperity to oppression. Yosef HaTzadik and all his brothers, all the other tribes, had passed on, and a new Pharaoh rose to power, one who did not remember Yosef or any of his accomplishments. And as the Jewish people began to flourish and grow in number, Pharaoh grew fearful of their strength and influence, and he worried that their increasing population could one day threaten his reign, and therefore determined to suppress them. Pharaoh enslaves the Jewish people with backbreaking work, subjugating them to grueling labor meant to crush their body, minds, and spirit. And meanwhile, Moshe Rabbeinu ventures out of the royal palaces where he has been raised and sees firsthand the enslavement of his brothers and sisters. And he encounters an incident that would forever change the course of his life and the course of history. Moshe sees an Egyptian taskmaster mercilessly beating a Jewish slave. And unable to remain a bystander no longer, Moshe Rabbeinu invokes God's holy and 72-letter name, killing the wicked Egyptian instantly. The repercussions came quickly. Pharaoh discovers Moshe's actions and sought to have him executed. Moshe Rabbeinu flees Egypt and escapes to the land of Midian to avoid Pharaoh's punishment. And when he arrives in Midian, Moshe stops at the city well where he encounters the 7 daughters of Yisroel, the priest of Midian. After Moshe helps them draw water for their animals, the sisters return home and recount the encounter to their father Yisroel. Yisroel then invites Moshe to his home, where Moshe eventually marries Yisroel's daughter Tzipporah and becomes the shepherd for his father-in-law's flocks of cattle. One day, while tending his father-in-law's sheep, Moshe notices something extraordinary, a burning bush that was not being consumed by the flames. And the more Moshe observed, the more peculiar it seemed. The fire raged, yet the bush remained intact, its leaves, its roses untouched. As Moshe approached to investigate, God calls out from the burning bush, saying, "Do not come any closer. Remove your shoes, for the ground you are standing upon is holy." God then reveals that he has heard the cries of the Jewish people's pain and suffering and wants Moshe to lead them out of Egypt. Moshe Rabbeinu objects, arguing that his speech impediment would prevent him from properly conveying God's holy words. But God reassures him and promises him that him and his brother Aaron would assist him and God in his mission. And despite Moshe's humility and hesitation, God reminds him that his purpose is to lead the Jewish nation to freedom. In gathering his wife Tzipporah and his children, Moshe journeys back to Egypt to fulfill his divine purpose. However, a question comes to mind. The Parsha begins with Eile Shemos Bnei Yisrael, Haboim Mitzrayma, Es Yaakov, Ish Ubeisei Bo. And these are the names of the sons of Yisroel, sons of Yaakov, who came to Egypt with Yaakov, each one coming with his household. The Torah uses 2 forms of the word to describe their arrival in Egypt. Haboim, that they are coming, written in the present tense, and Ba'u, they came, in past tense. Why does the Torah use 2 different tenses to describe the same event? If this is referring to Yaakov and his children who had already passed on, why does the Torah specifically choose the present tense, Haboim, as if they are still arriving? What deeper lesson, what message is the Torah trying to convey with this unusual wording? The Chizkuni, Rav Chizkiel ben Mano, a French rabbi from the 13th century, gives a simple explanation. And he writes that it was as if the Jewish people had just arrived in Egypt. Pharaoh acted as if he didn't recognize them or their contributions. And despite Yosef's pivotal role in saving Egypt and the world during the famine, Pharaoh treated the descendants of Yaakov and Yosef as strangers, ignoring their history, ignoring all their accomplishments. The Cheskoni explains that while Yosef was alive and even a few years after his death, Yaakov's family lived in peace and were left undisturbed. However, as time passed on, the Egyptians began to turn against them, subjugating them to harsh and oppressive treatment. And this shift in reality was so severe, just like the famine and the years of plenty, it erased the memory of the good years that they had enjoyed in Egypt. It felt as if they had just arrived as slaves, their past dignity forgotten, and their present defined by the relentless brutality and the ruthlessness of the aggression of the Egyptian taskmasters as they were beaten into labor. However, the Orach HaMakadesh, Rav Chaim Ben Attar, a Moroccan commentary and Kabbalist, gives a deeper and more profound explanation. And he explains that the Torah uses the present tense, haba'im, that are coming, while mentioning those that have passed on, such as Yaakov, to teach us that their story is not just in the past, but still unfolding today. Just as Yaakov and his children entered Egypt with faith in God's promise of salvation and a commitment to God, we too are continuing that exact same journey. The Torah's use of the term in present tense reminds us that they entered a foreign land, knowing that it was not their home, that the redemption would eventually come, and this awareness sustained them during their lengthy 420 years of enslavement in Egypt. The Torah emphasizes this lesson to inspire us in our own times. We too are faced with the challenges that demand faith and resilience and belief in God. Exile, both now and then, is not natural nor a permanent state. It carries with it the hope and the promise and the knowledge of our redemption. The Orach Chaim explains that exile is a place of limitation. Mitzrayim comes from the word Meitzar and Gvul, limitation and boundaries. And Egypt was a limitation for our ancestors. The Jews who left Egypt struggled to imagine freedom, much like today's Jew in exile struggles to see beyond the constraint of our situation. Often, the comforts of exile can dull our awareness of its boundaries and distract us from the greater potential of redemption. Yet the Torah urges us to remember that we are not meant to remain comfortable in exile, but yearn and demand and seek our ultimate salvation and redemption. Our path have already been forged by our matriarchs, by our patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. It was nurtured by the sages and prophets and leaders who led with holiness and with vision. We do not need to blaze new trails. Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov set the course for us. It is our generation, destined to witness the ultimate redemption, that must complete the journey and they began. And until Mashiach comes, we remain figuratively in Egypt, a place of spiritual limitation and boundaries. And with every mitzvah we do, every commandment we perform, we take another step forward in the path set for us by our ancestors, by Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and all those who have come before us. Each act of faith, each moment of devotion brings us closer to realizing their vision and experiencing the Beis Hamikdash HaShlishi, the ultimate redemption, to carry their hopes, their visions, their dreams into our reality today. This profound lesson is ever more relevant as the war in Israel continues on for over 15 months and our hostages remain in captivity, and our prayers are focused obviously on their safe return. May it happen immediately. And despite the immense challenges we face in Israel and across the diaspora, we are not alone in this struggle. We walk in the footsteps of those who came before us. Our matriarchs and patriarchs, our leaders, our sages, our prophets, our ordinary people who stood tall in the face of adversity, holding fast to their faith, holding fast to their purpose and mission in this world. Although the despair of exile may feel overwhelming, we must know that this has happened before. And it is the reason we know for a fact that the ultimate redemption, the Geula Amitis V'Hashlema, will happen as well. A strong Jewish people, a strong Jewish nation, united in spirit and mission, is essential to fulfilling and completing God's promise to Yaakov Avinu. He says, "Fear not to go down to Egypt," says God to Yaakov. "Ki legoy gadol asimech Hasham, for a great nation I will make you there. And I myself, Anechi ered imach, I will go down with you," says God to Yaakov. "V'anechi ahalecha imach gam Allah, and I will also bring you back." And these words remind us that even in the darkest moments, God's presence is with us, guiding us towards the redemption that He has promised and He has given the vision of to Abraham, to Yitzchak, to Yaakov. And just as God fulfilled His promise to Yaakov that He will do the same for His children, revealing the ultimate salvation and the connection between heaven and earth and rebuilding His home in our world. In our daily life, It is imperative that we understand that the troubles we face are not unique to us. They are challenges shared by many, both in our times and throughout history. The struggles we endure are part of the human experience, the human journey, and knowing that others have walked similar path gives us perspective and hope. It reminds us that despite the moments of despair, we possess the strength to overcome. We possess the strength to succeed. The lesson is clear. The obstacles we face are not barriers, but opportunities to grow. And those that came before us rose in the face of adversity and achieved far beyond what they imagined possible. Their resilience teaches us that we too can accomplish our dreams and realize our potential. And to do so, we must not allow the challenges to overwhelm us. Instead, we must see them as the catalyst that push us towards becoming our best selves, transforming struggle into success. I will conclude with a quote from the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi. The exile is not a punishment but a challenge to transform the darkness into light. Have a great weekend and good Shabbos. Thank you for tuning in to the Parsha Perspective. Check out our website, theparshaperspective.com. Send thoughts and comments to theparshaperspective@gmail.com. Till next time, thanks for listening.